I'm a dead boy walking all the time. I'm a dead boy crying as you pass me by. David Kushner has been rising in popularity the past couple years after he released Mr. Forgettable in 2022. His songs are super vocally driven and the production supports that and doesn't get in the way at all. Today I'm going to be taking you through how I produced a song similar to something like a David Kushner song. The song we're going to be looking at today is Dead Boy Walking by Jack Drinker. So let's get into it. And then just one quick thing to note, this song was mixed in a separate session. So everything you're hearing is just the production before we exported it and put it all in a mix session. If you want to see how we mixed it, leave a comment and I can definitely break that down, but this is just the production. Okay, let's do it. We built the whole song around this keyscape patch called Double Felt Grand Cinematic. It has this really nice reverb already baked in and it's felty, so it's not too harsh. Here's that. And truthfully, I don't think I tweaked this preset at all. We opened it and we were loving it instantly, so we just left it as is, and then later on, I EQ'd it to kind of get it to fit a little bit better in the song. To support the piano, we added in a respace, so that's gonna just be a really low, round bass that kind of helps fill out that low end. Here's that. So that feels nice and warm, and paired with the keyboard, it sounds like this. And you might notice that there's a compressor down here. What's happening is I created a sidechain track that mimics the kick. So every time the kick plays, the bass is gonna duck out a bit, just because we don't want a ton of stuff competing in that low end that it just becomes like a muddy mess. This way the kick cuts through and the bass kind of just ducks out when that happens. So this is what we've got going on. Boy, walking all the time. I'm a dead boy crying as you pass me by. And that's doing a significant amount of gain reduction, but I felt like it needed that so the kick could really come through and still have the bass quite loud and not have them competing. So that was kind of my thought process with that. That kick track I just played was just a trigger, so it's muted, but it's triggering the compressor. This is the actual kick I used and the snare, so this is just the very basic pattern. And I just did some EQ on both to get them to kind of sit where I wanted. So the kick has the top end rolled off and the snare is kind of filtered out. So here's that. And you can hear that snare already has some reverb baked into it, and I wanted that to kind of create some space. And then on every other snare hit, we just have an accent snare. And that just gives the beat some more movement. I love using Arcade for ear candy or to just create some textures or ambient layers. In this song, I used an arcade patch and printed it so I could have more control. And here's what that sounds like. And then I have the panning switching hard left and hard right between each phrase. So that's just like a nice little ear candy thing. Not anything too crazy. And then for the chorus, I wanted to thicken it up, but I tried adding synths and it just felt too synth poppy. So what I did instead was I used session strings from Native Instruments, just playing chords, and I used a slightly different voicing than what I used on the piano track, on the main piano track, just to fill it in nicely. I printed that to audio because I wanted to have a little more control. Sometimes with string plugins, there's a slow attack into the notes, and so I just like to be able to drag it over a little bit if I need to get everything sitting in that pocket. So here are the strings that I added in. And then I just have that sending to a hall from Valhalla Vintage Verb. And then to give it a little more energy, I have session strings again, but this time doing a pizzicato part. And you can hear those are played an octave up, so they're not sitting in the same range as the chords, so they can cut through the mix a little bit better. And then we've only got a couple more things before the vocals. These impacts, I just layered a ton of impacts because I wanted a pretty cinematic rise and then hit. So these are all just samples that I found from Splice or in my samples folder. So here are those all together. So you can hear it goes on pretty long. We've got a nice balance of cymbals versus low end impact, so we get that rise, and then the boom when the chorus hits.
I'm a dead boy walking all the time.
It just feels so good. And then the last thing we've got are just some electric guitar layers. We've got a low part, which is this. And I got that using my favorite guitar amp plugin, whatever you want to call this, Corey Wong's plugin, and I'm using the clean as a whistle preset. I think presets are a great way to start, especially on guitar tones, and then tweaking from there. So from that preset, I added in super long reverb from Valhalla, followed by Decapitator to just give it some saturation. And so then I did the same thing, same exact chain, just a higher part, so played higher up on the neck. And then we have a counter melody. Again, these are all going through the same chain. And those just fill in the ends of the phrases. And then we've got one more. This one is the only one that's slightly different. So it's a little bit cleaner. We're still using that clean as a whistle preset and the same vintage verb, but no decapitator this time, and then just doing a high cut to get rid of some of that high end. And that's it in terms of the production. Jack did vocals later on, but the main part of this chorus that I want to break down is the vocoder, which is this.
Dead boy walking all the time. I'm a dead boy crying as you pass me by.
So that vocoder is like the star of the chorus, so we have to talk about it. Basically, it is just vocal synth 2. I started with this by myself preset and tweaked from there. And before it even hits the vocal synth, I have it doing just like a very basic vocal chain. So I'm tuning Jack, just so anything that goes into vocal synth is gonna be in tune. And then a very simple EQ, cutting out some low end, RVox to give it a good amount of compression, about 8 dBs, just to control it a bit. And then I've found this is really important with a vocoder is to de-ess it before it hits the vocoder pretty hard, so you're not getting a ton of sibilance going through your vocoder. So here's the chain on and off. You can hear that it's not doing a lot. That is the point. We just want a little bit of control before it hits the vocoder. So here's it with nothing.
I'm a dead boy walking all the time.
And then that chain.
I'm a dead boy walking all the time.
A little less low end on especially like walking, this big peak right here. We're not getting it popping out because we want that vocoder to be a nice compressed layer that's gonna sit underneath all of our vocals. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about something more specific, how I got a certain sound, if you want me to break down vocal processing, mixing, leave a comment. But if not, I hope you enjoyed this. And so you can hear it a bit better, here is Dead Boy Walking by Jack Drinker on Spotify.
I'm a dead boy walking all the time.